Hi everyone, Patrick Knox here with AnnieMac Home Mortgage alongside my co-host Larry Steinberg from
Howdy.
Long and Foster Cherry Hill. We're back with Home and Mortgage University. We're going to be talking about first-time home buyers today. So Larry, why don't you start it off and explain to the buyer what the initial conversation is going to be like?
Well, first of all, one of the most important things to me is that there's a relationship that I have with my other people involved in the sale. The mortgage person, the title person, the home inspector. It helps me if we're all working together to make the transaction run smoother. I like to do a buyer consultation, which is a buyer interview. I want to sit down with that buyer. I want to find out how much they think they want to spend, where they want to live, what type of house they want, how many bedrooms they need. In order for me to get that information to easily search the homes for the people, I need to know what they're looking for. And more important than any of it is how much they can afford, because what they tell me is not always what they actually can afford, which is where you come in. And right after that initial buyer consultation, I make sure that they contact you so that hopefully you can have a consultation with them.
Well, where I come in is after you speak with Larry, I will then start speaking with you about what you're also looking for in terms of price range that you'd be comfortable with on a mortgage. I would then start out by taking an application. A couple ways we can take an application over the phone. I personally like to do it in person. However, I know busy work schedules, kids, and just life in general don't always make that possible.
Is that a copy of the form, Patrick?
This is a copy of the form that I can also email, and you can fill it out. However, if I'm not taking the application, you may have some questions. We're going to have to circle back to that and go over those questions when you do give me a call back and we're working on things. So idealistically, we're going to want to do it over the phone or in person, whichever is easiest and more comfortable for you as the buyer. Some things that I'm going to be asking: name, address, social security number, date of birth, the address that you've lived at for the last 2 years.
Patrick, is it important? I've had some clients who are the second, the third, junior. When you do that to run the credit, how important it is to make sure you know all that information?
Well, it's very important because there are certain circumstances where even if you are a junior, your father's credit will be pulled up as in your name, and or there could be something on your father's credit that shows up on your credit. Those are all situations that we'll be able to take care of here. Just a letter of explanation that you would have to sign, differentiating yourself from, the senior in this case.
How long will the process take for somebody to go from application to you to mortgage approval in general?
Well, a pre-approval can usually be done in 24 hours. I would gather your information, your employment information, which is huge. You need to be employed for 2 years by the same employer in order to get a mortgage.
Well,
However, say if you were a nurse and you were a nurse at Thomas Jefferson University Hospital for 1.5 years, and you just switched over to Cooper Hospital in New Jersey 6 months ago, for instance, you're still in the same field. That's not going to
The
hurt.
question I was going to ask, suppose we have a client who just graduated as an engineer from college, and he's been working for a year, making $80,000 a year. Can you approve that person based on 1 year because they're out of college? It's not like that they were not working.
Yes, we absolutely can, because at that time you're in college. So a lender such as AnnieMac takes that as you're working towards something. So we take that into consideration, and we use that. We'll have to get some information from your school, your transcripts, things like that, to prove that you were in school for the last year, to just cover any gaps of any time that you were unemployed.
What about co-signers? If somebody doesn't have all the requirements that they need, can a parent or someone else co-sign on the loan, even if they're not going to live in the house?
Yes, that's called a non-occupant co-borrower loan. And what that entails is, for instance, say your mother wanted to co-sign a loan for you because she made a decent amount of money and
has little debt.
And has very little debt. She would be able to go on the loan with you as another person, so you can actually then use her income as part of your income, because then she is just as responsible for the loan as you are, But that would obviously make it easier for you to get into a home, and that would be an FHA mortgage.
Which is why the debt for the parent would be important, because even if they had the income but they had more debt, that could hurt them in terms of helping their child.
Yes. Now that's actually called a debt to income ratio. It's very self-explanatory. How much debt that you have, how much money is going out every month, how much money is coming in every month. We actually have a very high debt to income ratio that we can use here at AnnieMac Home Mortgage, but we can discuss that because it's actually more or less on an individual basis. On everyone's is different.
So after you receive everybody's paperwork, let's say I take out this client, they find a house, they fall in love with it. We present an offer, they accept the offer. They make application to you. How long should it take for us to be able to close on that property?
Well, before I hit on that, some of the documents that we are going to need: a copy of your driver's license, social security card, the last 2 years of your tax returns, personal tax returns, any schedules that are involved in them, I'll also need. And this is all to qualify your income. I'll also ask you for copies of the last 2 years of your W-2s, the last 2 months of your pay stubs, and if you had a pension or any awards letter that you were receiving money, I would need copies of those as well.
What if the person...
Oh, wait, hold on.
Okay.
Another very important thing is 2 months consecutive bank statements. These bank statements actually have to be bank statements. They can't be bank statements that are printed out online. They need to be bank statements from your bank with your full name, full address, and full account number, and it has to be all pages. And that's just the guidelines of any mortgage company.
What about if somebody were, let's say, a car salesman or a real estate person where they had 1099 income, they didn't have that weekly paycheck? How do you handle that?
Well, that's why I would need your tax returns and your W-2s or your 1099s, because we would take the last 2 years and we would average out your income from say 2015 to 2014, and that would be your income.
Okay. Anything else you can think of?
So yes. So now back onto how long would it take to close?
Forgot. Thank you.
That's why it keeps the young guy around.
That's why I keep him around.
So we actually have a 21-day closing process at AnnieMac. Realistic expectations, 21 to 30 days from the time you go into contract to the time that we can close. We have a fantastic processing and underwriting team and closing department here at AnnieMac that work all hours of the night sometimes to make sure that your loan closes on.
What about with the new closing rules? Is that going to delay the amount of time to close?
It's not going to delay the amount of time to close. It's just going to put the ball in the buyer's court to get all the documents in. A lot of times on mortgages, FHA, conventional, really any mortgage that you're doing, VA, jumbo, there are going to be a lot of documents that, as a lender, we have investors. The investors are going to require. So it's not me, it's not our company.
So it's in order to
investors.
sell off the loan to the investors, they have to meet certain requirements.
Yes, something along those lines. More or less, it's the investors that are going to be taking on the mortgage from us. So we have to meet their guidelines at all times. And sometimes there are things that I shake my head at, but at the end of the day, they're the people that are going to be dishing out the money.
So realistically, with AnnieMac Mortgage working with my clients, we're looking at a 30 to 45 day close.
No, I would actually say 21 to 30 days.
Wow. Okay, that would be great.
So, moving on to that closing process, like I was saying, the documentation is going to be huge. The faster you get me the documentation in that we need, the better. The initial conversation you're going to have with me, I'm going to try and collect many documents as I possibly can.
And folks, it's not as scary as Patrick's making it sound, but there is a lot of stuff.
No, it's not hard. It's just very intensive, and all bases have to be covered, especially when we're, obviously this much money is being loaned to any individual. So after speaking with me, you're going to actually be on a phone call with one of my processors. Once the loan is in place, once you have your agreement of sale contract and everything in, then it's going to go to my processor, and my processor is going to give the first really dry run of your loan, all documentation needed, anything that we're missing at that time. Every week I'm going to be following up with you more than likely it's going to be every day. You're going to be receiving an email letting you know any documentation that we needed. So, like I said, the quicker that we have that, get that documentation in.
Is there a place
better.
online they can go to check for themselves in between calls?
No, there actually isn't a place. The email that you will be receiving from myself or the processor is going to have everything that we
Okay.
are going to need. And, you know, in any certain circumstances, I know Larry makes himself available to help you get those paperwork as well as I do. I've gone to banks with clients before and gotten the correct paperwork and information so we can get the deal done.
Great. Anything else?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Do you got anything?
No, I think we're good. Thank you again for watching our broadcast. I hope you found it informative. I hope you found it helpful. And once again, if you'd like to contact us, Patrick?
You can reach me on my cell. It's area code 484-903-9378.
Or my cell, 609-405-4111. Thank you again for watching, and watch next week for our next topic.